Welcome back to the Shutter Sports Podcast. Woo!
We're back.
From the little leagues
to the pros.
This is your weekly sports show.
Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast.
Take a seat at the table as we discuss.
I'm your host, Eli Pearl, and today I'm joined by Cam Stirling and Lucky Roberts. On today's episode, we will be discussing NBA predictions. We're going to go through each division and give our predictions for how the standings will play out. So, boys, why don't we just get right into it?
Let's do it. Okay,
so let's kick things off with the East, and we'll start with the Atlantic Division.
All right, I think it's pretty cut and dry here. I mean, the NBA champion Boston Celtics are clearly, and through the first couple of games here of the season, clearly the best team, I think, in the NBA at the moment. And just seeing how well they've even gained, how much better they've been playing than last year even in the start of the season. They've been dominant in these games, right? And they've figured out their system completely. They know exactly what they're going to do. They're playing on the same page. It's really impressive to see, and I don't see really any teams, especially in the Atlantic or East, playing up to that level. I know some other people would have other opinions, but the Celtics to me just are by far the best team and the best team that fits around each other.
Yeah, I don't think they didn't have many changes in the offseason, and I think Jason Tatum is already in full season form and is looking like an easy front runner for MVP. And pairing that with the same squad they had last year, they seem pretty unstoppable right now.
Do you think him not getting Finals MVP is making him play better, ticked him off, made him work harder in the offseason or something like that? Or
I think he just lives and breathes basketball. Like, I was watching Starting Five and just seeing his mentality behind the scenes. I think this is just what he loves to do. And obviously, we did it! We did it! And I think they want to do it again.
Yeah. Holding up Duke there, honestly, everything else he did was complete cringe. Holding up Duke in that photo was actually Deuce.
Yeah,
Deuce.
Ironically, the one thing he didn't plan out in his head days before ended up being the greatest memory he made, and that's definitely going to be an iconic photo and up there in championship photo history for years to come.
So I think we all have the Celtics at number one in the Atlantic Division.
I got a hot take, actually. I got the New York Knicks finishing first in the East and first in the Atlantic Division. If you look at the additions that team made, you replace Julius Randle with Karl Anthony Towns, major upgrade. Both of them pretty ball-dominant forwards, pretty ball-dominant big men who can space the floor and run the show if needed. And you replace Dante DiVincenzo with Mikal Bridges, who I think Bridges is looking worse than he was, obviously, because of the drama going on with his change in shot form. But he could replace Dante DiVincenzo easily by being a extremely trustworthy 3-and-D player and space the floor for both the bench if he comes off the bench behind OG Anunoby or starts on this team with you never know what the Knicks are going to throw at you with the wing depth of OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Mikal Bridges, three players who play pretty similar to each other. So I think the possibilities for this new look Knicks team is like the sky's the limit for this team. And Boston, I think they might have a rough start with Kristaps Porzingis being out for like 3 to 4 months, and you're starting Al Horford, who can't play 30 minutes a night for 50 games or whatever it is until Kristaps comes back, and their backup big is Luke Kornet, I believe. So the big man depth is not there for the Celtics as much as it is for the Knicks with Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson. And I think that might bite them early on in this season.
I think if you're the Celtics, though, the last thing you need is big depth. Like, if you're going to be weak in a position the way they play, just by spacing the court out, shooting threes, making smart cuts, and good reads, like, losing some center depth, I think, is not going to be as impactful as losing a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown.
Losing center depth is one thing, but having your starting big for the entire first half of the season being a 35, 36-year-old Al Horford is not ideal for any team in the NBA.
But Al Horford can still He can still space the floor. Same can Luke Cornett, right? And so they still are able to do what they want offensively. And defensively, it may not look as good as it did in the finals, but offensively, they still are able to get to the spots they want to and do the things they want to do. So I don't think it's as big of an impact.
Yeah, I agree with a lot about what you said about the Knicks, but we look at the minutes Al Horford played last year when Porzingis was injured, and he was able to go 25, 30 quite regularly. He obviously had his nights where they were playing like the Wizards and he only played 16 minutes. But I just see the Celtics as this powerhouse. And I see the Knicks that way too. I just have them in second place in the Atlantic Division. Lucky, your second place, I'm guessing, is also the Knicks based off of what
in the division. Yes, I have the Knicks in second place. Like Cam said, they're another one of these teams where you look every single spot on their starting lineup and you're like, I would not be surprised if this guy's a one-time All-Star this year, right? I would not be surprised if this guy makes the All-Star team. And it's also, they fit really well together. I agree. The Julius Randle deal, his contract was getting up there. They needed to switch, and obviously Cat has a similar contract issue, and they're just going to not worry about the thing the Celtics do. They're not going to worry about the salary cap, about the aprons at the top there. But I think if you're the Knicks, you look around every spot in their lineup and you just trust that guy, and you trust that guy in that spot. And I just don't know what their calling card is. I know what the Celtics calling card is, and I know they can do it the best in the league. I don't know what the Knicks do the best in the league, and so that's why I don't have them in that number one spot. But I do agree their team is really impressive that they've been able to get this amount of talent on their roster.
For the purpose of time, I think we're going to have to go through our 3, 4th, and 5th picks from each division a little faster and focus on, maybe we can each talk about our 1s and 2s more in detail.
Okay.
So let's go over our 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Personally, I go Sixers, Nets, Raptors.
Yeah, I think Raptors and Nets are sort of interchangeable there, but I do have the Raptors ahead of the Nets. I think they do have more star power than the Nets do, and I think that's going to push them a little bit higher in the standings. But yeah, Sixers, Raptors, Nets, interchangeable.
Yeah, I got Sixers 3rd, Raptors 4th, and Nets 5th. Nets losing their best player. I mean, they don't really have much going for them right now, and I think they're starting to enter a huge rebuild stage. Since blowing up the KD, Irving, Harden experiment. And as Lucky said, the Raptors just have more firepower. They looked great with the barbecue trio of RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and Emmanuel Quickley. And I think giving them another season to mold with a lot of injuries and a lot of missed games last season, they still looked really good chemistry-wise. And I think it's going to be a better season for the Raptors than it is for the Nets.
Yeah, I think I only have the Raptors at last just because I want to see them get that top draft pick as a Raptors fan. I don't want to see a winning season here. I want to see great things from Scotty, IQ, and Barnes, but I want to see them lose games close.
But the way that things have gone with the draft lottery in recent memory, like you can win the lottery being 7th, being the 7th worst team. You can win the lottery being
but
the 10th
obviously
worst
the odds
for sure
favor you if you're terrible. Let's move things on to the Central Division. And let's start off with you, Cam. And I think maybe this time, just list your teams in order. Lucky will list his teams in order. I'll list my teams in order, and then we'll discuss.
Okay.
Alrighty. Central, I got the Cleveland Cavaliers 1st seed. I got Milwaukee Bucks 2nd, Indiana Pacers 3rd, Chicago Bulls 4th, and Detroit Pistons 5th.
All right. I got kind of similar. I got the Cavs number 1, Pacers number 2, Bucks number 3, Bulls and Detroit. Yeah.
I was going to say I'm the exact same as you, Lucky. I think the Bulls and Detroit could be interchangeable. I'm going to say Detroit's going to be that last place team. But I don't think either of them are going to do particularly well this year.
No, for sure. And I think where I differ from you, Cam, I'm just going to tell you right now, the reason I have the Bucks in 3rd in this division is because I don't believe in Doc Rivers at all as a coach. And I think he's really bad. I mean, he's been handed good team after being on the Celtics and winning that championship because, he's won a championship. Let's give him a good team. Let's give him the Clippers, right? Let's give him a good team in the 76ers. Let's give him the Bucks. And time again, he underperforms in the regular season and in the playoffs. And he's only has a really high winning percentage because he's kept getting handed these juggernauts in the regular season. And he doesn't know how to coach. He had a worse record last year than Adrian Griffin, who got fired after 3 months. Fired after 3 months of being in his tenure, and he had a worse record than him. And I know there was stuff going behind the scenes with Adrian Griffin, and there was a disagreement with him and Giannis, and I get that. But Doc Rivers is not a good head coach. We need to get that out of our brains. And he's going to underperform. He always underperforms, and he's going to underperform again in the regular season with the.
Yeah, I think Doc Rivers is a huge issue within that team, but I also just don't think Lillard is as good as he used to be. And I don't think him and Giannis are that dynamic duo that they were looking for. Lillard's really starting to show his age. And yes, he still has the potential to be an all-star, but he's not the guy you want leading your squad. And I think my prediction for the Bucks this year is that Giannis will request a trade.
Wow.
I think he wants out.
I didn't think that far, but I agree that's definitely a possibility for the Bucks if it doesn't go their way, which I'm predicting it won't.
Yeah, they're not in a position to build a championship team, I believe, in the next 5 years, and I think that's Giannis's sort of future as this superstar that he is, and I think he's going to want to get away from this.
We'll have to see how they do once Chris Middleton comes back, but
Middleton's not going to make that much of a difference.
Yeah, I mean,
he's an old guy who can shoot the three.
He can hit some buckets in big spots though. He has hit buckets in big spots before. I honestly, looking back, like Drew Holiday with this team a lot better than I like Damian Lillard with this team. Just from a style of play point of view, having a guy who can defend the best guy on the other team from the perimeter, and Drew Holiday also makes really big shots. He's a really clutch player.
Oh, for sure.
And he makes shots when you need him to. Lillard makes shots when you need him to, and he also forces shots when you don't need him to. And that's the difference.
Yeah, I think my seeding is purely based off Giannis, if Giannis stays healthy. And if you look around this team, this is the textbook roster that you need to build around a player like Giannis, with a bunch of pure shooters and a bunch of consistent shooters, more so, because Lillard is the most legendary clutch shooter in arguably the history of the 2000s. Brook Lopez, one of the best stretch bigs plus shot blockers we've seen the past 10 years, and Chris Middleton is a spot-up shooter at heart. Those three players are some of the most consistent three-point shooters, and as I said, that's just what Giannis needs on his roster. So if he stays healthy, I think Giannis is going to go off and possibly go for another MVP.
Brook Lopez is the exact center I would want to have on my team, the exact archetype 3 years ago. He's just getting up there in age for me, and I don't really trust bigs at that age to stay and keep their athleticism. And I think he's already lost a bit of that. He's still a bit of a rim presence. He can still hit the three when he needs to. I just don't think he's the player he was 3 years ago for the Bucks. But I agree. I mean, they do have shooters. They have built it around Giannis in a way that you would think would be beneficial to Giannis, but it just hasn't really panned out for them so far.
So I think that's a Central Division. Let's move on to a little bit of a cluster of the Southeast Division, where I think this is where we'll see a lot of differences in our predictions.
This division is awful
because it's not a good division, and
not a good division. There's one team right here that's sticking out to me. That's a good team.
There's one team that's a good team, and I think we're all going to go Magic then Heat, but I don't.
Nope. Magic then Hawks. I have Magic, Hawks, Heat.
I would not.
Let's get talking. Lucky, lead the way with your top five.
Okay, yeah. I'll start with my top five. I'm starting out Magic, Hawks, Heat, Hornets, Wizards. Obviously, Hornets, Wizards, don't need to talk about them at all. But I think the Hawks are, I wouldn't say they're an amazing team. I just think they're going to do better in the regular season than the Heat. I think in the playoffs, it's a different story. I think the Heat are a better team in the playoffs than the Hawks, but I think Trae Young is going to go in there every single day and play his best basketball. And he's been really, really good this year. Like, have you been like he's dropping 30 and 10 every single time, and he's been leading this Hawks team. They've won some surprising games, stayed in some surprising games. Dyson Daniels for them has been a great pickup. He's been playing really, really well in that trade, and I know they got Dyson Daniels 2 first-round picks. I'm really liking that deal for them with the I think the deal with the Pelicans.
I believe so.
I think that was a great deal. We saw Trey and DeJounte play together, and they were terrible. And then when each of them got to play without the other one, they were a above 500 team. I think that trade was exactly what they needed to do. I just don't see that team being better than the Heat. Yes, Jimmy Butler is getting old, and we see that regular season Jimmy, and he only really turns it on in the playoffs. But I still think the Heat are just the better team overall.
But like, tell me positions other than Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo that they're better.
I'd say they have a better. Is Hero still their sixth man this year? Or is he starting?
Hero's not a good basketball player. Hero can't play a lick of defense.
Still a great sixth man.
I'd take Jalen Johnson. I'd say Jalen Johnson and Hero for me are the exact same type of player. Jalen Johnson and Hero are the same type of player. I think Dyson Daniels is a better point guard around Trae Young. I think Onyeka Okongwu is going to replace Clint Capella in that center role, and I love the athleticism and the play that I see from Okongwu. I think the Hawks are a better regular season team than the Heat.
I don't know. I like Terry Rozier with the ball. I think that was a great acquisition as well.
You can find a bunch of Terry Roziers across the league. Like, there's a bunch of score-first point guards you can find.
Yeah, I have them very even, but you can't count out a coach like Eric Spoelstra. He's one of the best coaches in the history of the game. I mean, he can run a young team around a player like Jimmy Butler and still make it into the playoffs possibly. So I don't think Atlanta is quite there yet to be a playoff contender. I think they might be a play-in member, but yeah, I think Miami.
I have the Hawks in the play-in.
Yeah, I have Miami above just because they're a bit more proven.
I'll say this right now. I have the Hawks as the 7 seed. The Heat is the 8 seed.
I also don't see Trae Young getting any major accolades while a Hawk. I don't think they have the coaching and the management to lead Trae Young to even the conference finals.
I think that the media have something against Trae Young because he's a score-first guard, and they think he just chucks a bunch of threes, but they have to realize he runs that entire offense. Like, he has...
For sure he runs that entire offense, and where's he taken that offense?
He's taken them... They've been a play-in team each of these past couple of years, and I think the Hawks just needed to unleash Trae Young and have him be just a little bit smarter and have the right players around him, and I'm telling you, just watch out for the Hawks this year.
I think Trae Young is obviously he's had a bit better stats, but he's having the exact same arc as Kemba Walker did with the Hornets. Like, he's never gonna have success in Atlanta, although he is playing like a top 5 point guard. Atlanta's just not a big enough market and a big enough free agent destination for them to build a successful team around.
The Hawks have a better team than the Hornets ever did. Like, let's not pretend like the Hornets were trotting out they were
still brought them to the playoffs
once.
Yeah,
once.
Trae Young can bring them into the playoffs, but what's he doing once he's there is, I think, what me and Cam are pointing at.
I have him as the 7 seed.
And I
have him as the 7 seed.
Okay, and I think
I'm not saying he's going to win the championship here.
And I do think that the Hawks have a good team. I just think overall the Heat are going to end up in that second spot in the Southeast Division. Obviously, we all have the Magic for the same reasons. They're a great young core. Banchero dropped a 50 ball last night out of nowhere. And then the Wizards and the Hornets are just in no position to be good teams. We're going to move on to the West now. And I think maybe the most interesting division to talk about within the West, or honestly, every division in the West is fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But let's start out with the Northwest.
The Northwest, I have. I think this one might be a little more cookie cutter than the other ones, but Oklahoma City first, Denver second, Minnesota third, Utah fourth, and Portland fifth.
I have the same as you, except I'm going to switch around Minnesota and Denver. I think what we've seen from Denver this year, doesn't look the greatest, to be honest. I think Jamal Murray's a little overrated, and that really leaves Jokic as their main scorer. And yes, Jokic is amazing, but I like what I've seen a lot more from the Minnesota Timberwolves so far.
Yeah, I'm the same as Eli, except I have the Trailblazers ahead of the Jazz. They're both bad. I mean, you're picking nits at that point. There's not really a difference. I agree completely with Eli. The Nuggets, especially to start this season, have started really slow. I mean, they were going back and forth. They went to overtime. They were about to lose to the Raptors without Quickly, right? Like, we have to, without Quickly, without Olynyk, without Bruce Brown.
Without Scotty for that overtime, because he went out with an eye injury. I was going to say, I think the Raptors beat that Nuggets team if Scotty doesn't go out injured.
No, totally.
I think if Scotty doesn't come out injured, Jamal doesn't make that layup to send them to overtime, probably.
Yeah, and the Nuggets have been really unimpressive to start, and it's because of exactly what you said. Nobody around Jokic stepping up. Aaron Gordon is, he gets a bunch of offensive rebounds. He tips them in. You saw that last night, but he doesn't really do much else for you offensively. He's a rim runner for a great passer, I guess, but Jamal Murray has had a lot of that load offensively the last couple of years, and other than that scoop layup that he made to send the game into overtime, he was nothing, and he's been nothing. For Canada, he was nothing. He's been nothing to start this season for the Nuggets, and right now you can find a lot of Jamal Murray's, just like you can find a lot of Terry Rozier's across the league.
In that game last night as well, I think that game goes to double overtime if RJ doesn't take a stupid shot, which is also showing the Nuggets were going to lose to the Raptors. Like, they were going to lose to a team that we're talking about getting that first overall draft pick. And I just think Ant's going to take another step this year. So far, Randall's looked great for them. He's spacing the floor well. He's hitting his threes. And they got deeper in that trade.
Honestly, I think Minnesota and Oklahoma City are neck and neck for me in this division.
Really?
I think they're the two best teams in this conference, and I think they're neck and neck for me. They both have really bigs. Really good bigs. They have score first guards who can do anything and could score exactly when you need them to. Really clutch score first guards. I think their teams are very, very similar when you look at them.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else we want to add to the Northwest Division?
Nah.
I think that one's pretty cookie cutter.
Let's go to the California Division, aka the Pacific Division. Sorry, Phoenix, but you're the odd man out here. State-wise, they're obviously a great team.
Yeah.
But let's talk Pacific.
Okay. I don't know whether mine's a hot take or not, but I got the Lakers first. I got the Kings second. Got the Suns third, the Warriors fourth, and the Clippers fifth.
I don't think I have a single one that's the same as that.
I was going to say, and I think 4 of these 5 teams are most likely going to be playoff teams.
I have 4 of them in the top 10.
Yeah. We'll include play-in for playoff now. I
have 3 in the playoffs.
I think if you're going to...
I have 3 in the playoffs, 4 in the top 10.
Okay. So do you want to talk your rankings and then I'll go into mine?
Sure. Yeah, I have the Suns first, the Kings second, the Lakers third, and the Clippers fourth with the Warriors fifth.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I have the Suns first, the Kings second, the Lakers third, the Warriors fourth, and the Clippers fifth. So I think this is a good division to talk about, and let's start out with you, Cam.
Okay. So far, there is a major change that J.J. Redick brought to the coaching over Darvin Ham. I think, Darvin Ham was the worst thing to happen for a team with LeBron James, who prides himself on running good plays and fooling the defense, reading the defense, and J.J. Redick already being fairly close friends with LeBron, just plain and simple. I think he will mesh extremely well. And it showed early in the season. Their plays are more dynamic. Their plays cut through the defense immediately. There was this one cut play that Austin Reeves ran with Anthony Davis and Max Christie 3 plays in a row, and it worked. Anthony Davis driving down cutting down the lane. Austin Reeves down the right side. He's kicked it out to Max Christie, and he's kicked it into Anthony Davis, depending on where the weak side defender goes. And it's worked immediately. And plays like that are something you never saw with the Darvin Ham Lakers. He gave the ball to LeBron and AD and let them run the show with no plan. So I think JJ Redick is has shown very good promise on this type of Lakers team, and I think it's going to continue throughout the regular season.
So Cam, I just have one question for you. That
Yeah.
game last night, who won that game?
I didn't see the final score, actually.
The Phoenix Suns 109, Lakers 105, and that's the team I have first in this division is the
Okay.
Suns. And it's a very similar reasoning to why I have the Hawks high. Is I think they're going to be a great regular season team. Do I trust them in the playoffs defensively? Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. But in regular season, I think the Suns are going to be a juggernaut. I think they have 3 scorers that can get you anything you want. Obviously, it's going to be touch and go defensively, but that's it. Like the NBA doesn't care about defense anymore, and that's what you have to realize. Until the playoffs, all you have to do is have a high-scoring team. Like you saw that with the Kings during their beam year. They were an insane offensive team, and they still are an insane offensive team. But once you get into the playoffs, your defensive systems really come to test, and that didn't work out for them. The Suns, I think, are going to be a juggernaut offensively and going to be a juggernaut in the regular season.
I would agree with you on the Suns. And I just want to go back to the Lakers for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I've seen from JJ Redick coaching. And I think a big part of them already doing so much better is that he's already said they found that starting lineup, which Darvin Ham last year couldn't find. And when he did have the set of starters that JJ Redick is running now, their win percentage was much higher. But I don't think LeBron and AD are going to be able to stay healthy at the same time. And I think with even just one of them out, I don't think that's a team that's going to win a lot of games. So that's why I don't have them in that one spot. I think a team that isn't talked about enough is the Warriors. We've seen Curry win in 2022 with a lineup that nobody thought was going to win a championship. And I think Buddy Hield has looked great so far for this offense. He's a guy that's going to have a 40% three-point shot. And I think he's a key piece in signing. And then furthermore, this team doesn't really need a big man. We've seen them win without a big man constantly. And I think continuing Kevon Looney as that backup center is a great piece for them. I don't think they're better than the Suns or the Kings, but I think they're about the same level as the Lakers.
I don't have the Warriors making the playoffs.
I do not either.
I don't have the Clippers making the playoffs.
I have the Clippers in the 10 seed.
Who do the Clippers have now?
They have Norman Powell. Obviously, they have James Harden. They have what's their center name again?
Zubats.
Zuby Dooby Doo.
I don't think that's a squad that's gonna succeed at a playoff level.
Harden can't carry a team.
But
anymore.
we're not talking about a playoff level.
Kawhi's playing. Kawhi's
10th
playing
seed
like
is a
20
playoff level.
games.
But in the regular season, we're talking about a regular season.
Yes, and getting to the 10th seed puts you to the playoffs.
Yes, but
There's one thing about a playoff level and then winning in the playoffs. And I don't think this team can. I think the Warriors are better than the Clippers.
I do too, but the Warriors I cannot see
they're equal
succeeding this year. Curry's already had ankle problems this season. That's something he had in his rookie year. He buffed up a little bit. He got more physical, but he's getting up there in age now. Those ankles are not going to last forever, and I think this is the year where we see a major downfall in the health of Steph Curry.
I agree, and I think the rosters of the Clippers and the Warriors are very similar. Like I really do. Curry obviously is a shining star, but I think if they can get Kawhi back, I think Kawhi is an equal star.
I really want to see this Warriors team go into a rebuild and give the ball to Podziemski and Trace Jackson Davis. I want to see a new.
You can't say that. What are you talking about? You want to see Trace Jackson Davis with the ball?
Oh, maybe not run the show, but I want to see him.
I don't think Pod can run the show.
I don't even
either,
think
though.
Podziemski's that good either.
Really?
I really don't.
Really?
I think you find a bunch of Podziemskis. I think
you were comparing him and Hero before earlier.
Hero's a way better scorer
Okay.
than Podziemski,
Okay.
but I have the same issues. I do worry about Podziemski's defense a little bit. And Podziemski isn't as good of a shooter, I think, as Hero, especially off the dribble. He can't create much of his own offense. A lot of his offense is created off of Curry. And I think it's a big market. It's the same thing with Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves you can find on a lot of teams, but because he plays for the Lakers and because he's a white player, I'm going to be honest, there's a certain level of people that look at him and they're like, "Oh my God, I love Austin Reeves. Look, it's because it's new to people seeing this white guy who can actually ball, you know." And so everybody's like, "Oh, he's amazing. He's awesome." They assign all these roles to him. It's similar with Hero. He's a white guy who can ball. But you look, and there's a lot of players in the NBA who play very similar to them and don't get nearly the amount of hype. Like Norman Powell plays very similar to them, does not get nearly the amount of hype.
Except now Norman Powell's creeping up on age. He's how old now? 33?
At least 30.
Plays very similar to them.
Is Powell going to stay healthy this year? He's a little chunky.
He's never been injured. He's never been injury prone.
I think Norman Powell's enough of a 3-and-D player to not put his body in harm's way this season. I don't think Norm's going to be in the injury tent much this year.
I just don't see the Clippers as this team above the Warriors. And I'll just leave it at that so we can move on for now.
I think they're both bad this year.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think the Warriors are good, but I still think they're good enough to make the plans.
I think I see them both having 42 to 35 wins.
Let's just talk about the Kings quickly because they're such a fun team to watch.
I love this new look Sacramento Kings. If the one thing I could be swayed on the Lakers is I think the Kings will be a top 3 seed this year, because of the addition of DeMar DeRozan, who fits perfectly into the offense that De'Aaron Fox runs. I think it's a great fit.
That's actually ties to my point a bit. I still think he fits, but it also confuses me. This team plays a such fast pace of basketball, and DeMar does not. He's a big mid-range jumper guy, and he's getting older. He's not as quick as he once was up and down the court.
I also thought it was kind of a weird fit. Yeah.
It's a weird fit, but it seems to be working oddly enough so far.
Well, like it's another one of those things that it's going to work
size.
in the regular season. It's a small sample size. In the playoffs, we'll have to see if it works in the playoffs as well.
But I think it's an interesting experiment.
And you know what? I'm all here for that. Yeah, I'm all here for interesting experience with NBA teams, you know? I don't want to see the same every single team try to replicate what the Boston Celtics have, right? Let's see some variance in the way the styles of these teams, right? And I love the Kings bringing on DeMar DeRozan just because I love DeMar DeRozan myself, and he's a great basketball player, and he'll help some half-court woes that they may have because I know they supplement a lot of their stuff with transition game. Having DeMar DeRozan, he can get you a bucket whenever, right? Mm-hmm. His mid-range is the best in the league, and I will stand by that. And I mean, maybe him and KD, I think, are the best mid-range shooters in the NBA.
I think a healthy Kawhi has quite the mid-range, too.
No such thing.
No such thing as what? A healthy Kawhi?
Finally, let's move on to the Southwest Division. And let's kick things off with Lucky Roberts about your rankings.
Yeah, okay. So, number 1 in the Mavericks. Number 1, I have the Mavericks. 2, I have the Rockets. 3 is the Pelicans. 4 is Grizzlies. 5 is the Spurs.
Rockets at 2.
Rockets at 2.
They're taking that jump this year?
What seed do you think the Rockets are getting?
8.
8? I don't know.
What seed do you think the Rockets are getting?
12.
Really?
I don't think they're making the no,
I think Şengün's going to make that jump. Fred VanVleet's being
I don't think they're making the play-in.
I think they're making the play-in.
Okay.
Let me give you my reasoning.
Here, let's have Cam give his list. Okay. I'll give my list, and then we'll talk Mavericks for a bit because I'm going to guess they're all our number 1. Yeah. And then that's where we're going to see our differences.
I think it goes Mavericks, Grizzlies, Pelicans, Rockets, Spurs.
Yeah, I would agree with you for the most part there. I think Mavericks are the clear 1. I could see the Grizzlies and Pelicans battling for that too. And then I see Rockets 4, Spurs 5.
What good do you guys see in the Grizzlies?
John Morant was
Desmond Bane
over half of the season last year.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
They had nobody last year. And last time they had a fully healthy team, were they like top 4 seed?
I think so.
Yeah. I want to see Ja come back.
Jaren's not playing center anymore?
I want to see Ja come back and be the same player.
After seeing 2 Grizzlies games in person, I think Ja's obviously an important piece to them, and I think he needs to be talked about. But I think Desmond Bane is also such an important piece.
Bane's
to them.
A great player.
Watching him around the rim is insane. He's a guy that I think can finish any shot for the most part.
He's very similar to RJ Barrett in that way. He's like a 2 guard who can finish really strongly at the rim.
But he also shoots so well from the 3.
Yeah.
Where he's obviously better from the 3 than RJ. And I think he's such a key piece to their offense. And I think paired with a healthy Jaw and a non-conflict Jaw, I think this team can do really well. And pairing that with the defensive powerhouse of Jaren Jackson Jr., and hopefully we see a bigger step from Edey in grabbing those boards and getting those buckets in the post, I think the Grizzlies are an underrated team this year.
I want to see Jaw get back to the unfazed Jaw that we saw at the beginning of his career. And I want to see him, I know he's gone through a bit of a media hellfire. I want to see him bounce back mentally from that, right? There has been players that have gone through media hellfires, like a Ben Simmons, and they haven't been the same player afterwards, right? And so I want to see Jaw be the same player. And Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, I think are great players. Edey, I have not been really happy with to start the season.
I haven't been happy with him either, but he will. Like, obviously, he's a rookie. He's only played in 4 games. It's still early in the year. I see him improving from where he was.
What do you see him improving in?
I think they're just going to start to use him in a way more to get more confident and to get those boards and to get those points in the paint. You can't develop 7-4.
No,
you can't create, like, he's built in a tube pretty much. Like, he's huge, and I think the longer he plays, the more confident he will get.
For him to be an effective NBA player, he has to have a lot of the basketball. Like, that's, like, for him, he can't just be standing on offense, right? He can't be clogging up space. So he has to have a lot of the basketball. It has to be run. Some of the stuff has to be run through him. And so I want to see him improve as a passer. I want to see him.
He needs to watch some Domantas Sabonis film.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see him watch some Sengun film.
Yeah.
And I think if he develops in those areas with his passing, I think he can be a solid NBA player. But right now I see him clogging a lot of their spacing, and I don't see him helping offensively unless he has the ball in his hands and he's going to work on the post.
But we also have to remember, this was a team that was good without Edey. Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of the best defensive players in the league and is also huge. So just adding Edey and developing him, even if he doesn't develop, this is a guy that you can sit on your bench as a backup center.
Yeah.
I just want to see it from Jaw. I just want to see him get back to the levels he was at.
Like, the Grizzlies already look fairly strong with the fit of their team, and once Gigi Jackson comes back and fits right into that 3 spot, I think this team's going to be a team to be reckoned with. I have them at the 8 seed in the playoffs, and they're not an easy out.
Let's talk Pelicans a little quickly, because I think they're kind of a team that we all have in
them in the play-in. Yeah,
I have them 9.
Ingram's looked great so far this year.
Oh, yeah.
On my fantasy team, I'm loving it.
That game in the clutch, Ingram's looking like a guy who's, despite going into his 8th or 9th or...
I think 8th
year?
2016.
He's looking like he's taking another step. And he was already the most improved player a few years ago, and he seems to be improving further from there.
The thing for him has always been consistency, because he's always had these games that he's been really, really elite, and then he's had games where he's been invisible.
But now you're pairing him with DeJounte Murray now.
It's not even about who you're pairing him with. I want to see him consistently be an effective offensive player, and I've seen that this year, and I've been really impressed with Brandon Ingram. This West is full of amazing teams.
Yeah, and if I think Herb Jones at the center, like they were saying they were going to do, is
stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's stupid, but
it's stupid.
It's unconventional, definitely.
You're telling you're rolling up Herb Jones against Zach Edey?
I think it's a better option than PJ Tucker on the Rockets.
Well, then get better options.
And
that team made the playoffs, but that was with James Harden. So.
I don't think Zion is going to stay healthy, but I think when he is on the court, the impact he'll have on this team will be positive. And I think the Pelicans are another team that are better than they're put out to be. This West is just crazy this year.
Yeah.
With Zion, they might be a top 6 team in the West. Like, and that's like a crazy sentence to be like, that's like a good thing to be a top 6 team in the West. Like you just said, it is an insanely crowded West. And it's an insanely crowded NBA as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of parity we have across the league is amazing, and it's a great thing. But it's really hard to find.
There's no 43 and 39 teams getting into the playoffs anymore.
No.
So let's
in the West.
No.
Let's go over quickly with the short amount of time we have is just who we think our top 6 teams in the East and West are going to be. And I think we can all agree in the East. We have the Celtics, we have the Knicks, We have the Cavs. Who else are you putting in that top 6?
Pacers, Sixers.
We need a 6th.
I have Boston, Knicks, Sixers, Cavs, Pacers, Magic.
You forgot the Magic.
Yeah.
Okay. I can get behind that completely. I think the Sixers I don't have complete confidence in.
I have complete confidence in when they get their whole team healthy.
But will that team be fully healthy? We haven't seen healthy Paul George in years.
I don't need a fully healthy Paul George. I just need Paul George that I saw the last couple of years. I think Embiid is a game wrecker. I think he really is. And I know he's only going to play 60 games, and I get that.
But in those 60 games, he's going to look like an MVP.
He's going to look like an MVP. He's an absolute game wrecker. There's nothing you can do about Embiid, really. He's an offensive player you just cannot guard. I don't know anybody who can guard an Embiid. He can shoot middies now. He can shoot threes at a decent rate. And just one-on-one backing you down. He makes smart passes that you don't see an ED make. And then you have around him this offense that is built with a bunch of three-point shooters. You have Maxey, who, when Embiid is injured, can also break a guy down off the dribble. He hit some really deep threes. And you can see Paul George also break a guy down off the dribble. And so just having those guys around Embiid, I think is come playoff time is going to be really, really hard to beat. In the regular season, I think they're the 6th seed, and that's where I have them. Come playoff time, they're a really, really good team, especially with Nick Nurse drawing up their defense.
I have the top 3 seeds coming from the Atlantic Division. I got Knicks, Celtics, Sixers, and then I got Cavaliers, Bucks, Magic. And I do want to give a hot take to my 8th seed. I think the Bulls make the play-in and make it to the 8th seed of the playoffs.
I don't have them in. I have them out.
I think the Bucks are a little... Obviously, I gave my 2 cents on the Bucks. Me and Lucky both don't see them very highly this year.
I can't see them making past the first round, but I think that team's just too well built, and if they stay healthy, Doc Rivers, as we said, is a regular season coach. He takes well-built teams to the playoffs and then ruins them. So I think they make it to the playoffs still. I think they perform well in the regular season and, get first round.
And I'm going to change my statement slightly here. Giannis may not request a trade during the season, but this offseason, if he doesn't during the season, he will for sure. I do not see Giannis in a Bucks uniform next year, is the way I'll put it.
They've definitely ran out of outs. They've made a lot of excuses each and every year saying, okay, but let's bring in Dame. It's going to be different this year. It's going to be different. We're going to bring in Doc Rivers, right? And it hasn't been different. And you look back and the best well-built teams with the Bucks were the team they already freaking had, you know?
Drew Holiday.
They had Drew Holiday. They had Brook Lopez 3 years ago.
Dante DiVincenzo,
right? And they keep trying to change stuff to appease Giannis when he already had his team. It's sort of similar to like LeBron, where he has his amazing team. They win the championship in 2020, and then he wants to keep making all these changes. You had a championship-winning team right there.
A Mickey Mouse championship team.
I don't care if it's a Mickey Mouse championship team. It's a championship. Why would I care?
Take advantage of the Mickey Mouse championship.
Yeah.
I don't discredit that championship, but it was an easier year to win.
It just
I hate people
not
discrediting
easier, a
championships.
different year. It was a different style, and you can't disagree with.
If you want people to care about the NBA and enjoy NBA basketball, you cannot discredit championships. Every championship is equal. All right.
I don't think that MLB postseason was the same that year. I don't think any postseason was the same that year.
But
yes, it was a championship, but it was a different kind
of
championship.
You had 10 less games that could have changed the entire trajectory of that playoffs.
Okay, but who was the best team in the playoffs?
The best team of the playoffs was the Miami Heat.
The Miami Heat.
It's because Jimmy Butler took advantage of that environment.
So who won the championship? Who beat the Heat in the finals?
LeBron did.
Yes. So they're the best team in the playoffs. What are you talking about?
Let's go to the West here because we're running out of time. Top 6 teams in the West.
I can't believe you said that. The Heat were better than the Lakers in the playoffs in 2020.
I think the Heat were I don't know if they were better. I think they were the more impressive team.
More impressive. People get Coach of the Year for being a more impressive coach. Doesn't mean their team was the best team.
I'm thinking.
Pondering time.
I'm pondering.
Right? Like, you see one seeds. Andy Reid doesn't win Coach of the Year every year, but he has the best team.
On to the West. OKC, Minnesota, the Suns, the Mavs. And then I think it gets a little interesting. I think those next two teams, there might be a few disagreements between us.
I already have disagreements. I have the Thunder, the Mavericks, the Kings, the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves.
I think the Nuggets will be a play-in team this year.
No, I still think the Nuggets are...
I think they dropped to that 7 or 8. I think in the old format the NBA had, they would have been that top team, but I think they now fall into a play-in category this season.
I have the Nuggets figuring some stuff out through over the course of the season and finishing in the 6th seed. I think they figure out their issues with Jamal Murray, and I think Jokic is too good of a player to be stuck in the play-in.
I can agree with Jokic being too good of a player, but it's just the pieces he has around him, and he could be that 6th seed. I just see him fall. I see him falling late in the year to the 7, similar to the way we saw Sabonis and the Kings fall towards the end of the year into a play-in spot.
I don't think he falls towards the end of the year. I think he starts the beginning of the year back, and then he slowly climbs his way up the standings.
Sabonis was playing at a high level. I'm saying just as the leader of that team, as the number one option, I say towards the end of the year, they just can't put all the pieces together to maintain that spot in the 6. I have no doubt in my mind that at some points in the year, they will be a top 6 team. I think towards the end of the year, they just fall into that almost 6, 7 category.
All right, yeah, so I have Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Suns, Mavericks, Nuggets, and Kings. I have the Lakers in the 7th seed. I really wanted to find them in the top 6. I just couldn't find the space.
And then
I cannot see the Suns being the 3 seed after the regular season. They have zero depth. They have zero.
Yeah, but you don't need depth in the regular season.
Yes, you do.
I think they're fine. I mean, that was a crazy take, actually.
I'm gonna have to cut you off,
If
guys.
Bradley
Quickly.
Beal puts 10 points up, who's recovering that? If he has a bad game, who recovers that?
Okay,
KD.
guys, quickly give me your MVP prediction from the East, MVP prediction from the West.
Oh, we're going quick here.
MVP prediction.
No reasoning, just say. I have Tatum in the East.
I'm gonna go Tatum too.
I have Luka in the West.
Actually, I'm going Paolo. Paolo in the East, and I'm going in the West. Ant.
I have Luka in the West, Brunson in the East.
Thank you for joining us on the Shutter Sports Podcast. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you find your podcasts, and don't be shy to join the discussion on any platform at Shutter Sports Media. Until next time, I'm Eli Pearl, joined by
Cam Stirling
and Lucky Roberts.
and this has been the Shutter Sports Podcast.